Hello everyone. I'm going to show you in this video how to set up IncoPOS for a retail store. With the new versions, it's really easy to do that. Once you install IncoPOS, you just have to go through the setup process. The first thing that we need to do is to create a new database. Now we have a few options here if we show all the settings. By default, IncoPOS uses MariaDB, which is a clone of MySQL Server. And here you can see the basic properties of that database, which is where is the server located, its port, user, password. By default, when you install IncoPOS, it installs MariaDB with it. And this is true for Windows. For the other operating systems that we support, we generally don't install automatically MariaDB, but you can easily install it with other steps. Now, once you install IncoPOS on Windows, it automatically connects to the MariaDB instance that it installed. So the only thing that we have to do is create our database that will store the information about our company in it. I'll choose some name, let's say just store something. I'll create it, and next thing you'll see is the database assistant. We go through the steps of it, and it helps us guide and configure the system so it will match our business and the things that we need to use in it better. Here we choose the business type that we want to use IncoPOS for. In that case, I'll choose retail shop. We can choose supermarket, warehouse, and so on. This will let IncoPOS know how to configure things and how to suggest us to configure some of the things. So I'll choose retail shop, click next. If we are in a certain country where we have custom configuration for it, you can choose some of these here too. This will let us configure IncoPOS so certain reports, for example, will be displayed that are only relevant for that country, or some devices will require that country localization. For example, fiscal devices in Bulgaria, they often require the country localization to be Bulgarian in order for them to work. I'll choose other right now. This is the name of the workstation. We need to name that computer that we're currently on somehow. This is only used internally to store the configuration. The idea is that if you have a backup of that database and you restore it later, and you want to preserve and reload the configuration, you can choose which workstation to use for the loading of the settings, which workstation you essentially replaced. Okay, so the next one is taxes. Based on that I used a retail store for business type, and I didn't select a country. We get some default values here. For example, if I selected Tanzania, for example, the VAT there currently is 18%, and I would get a suggestion for 18% here. But right now we didn't select any country, so we get something like 20, which is a medium value. And then are using VAT or sales tax. By default, we use VAT. In most countries we do. Are you VAT registered? If that business is VAT registered, we have to add VAT on top of everything that we sell. We select the VAT value, and if all the prices that are in the store are actually recorded as prices with VAT. Usually for B2C businesses, the businesses that sell directly to clients, the prices are including VAT in them. So when you see something that costs 1.20, this means it contains VAT in that price. When you work with businesses that usually sell to other businesses, then generally these prices that you store are without VAT, and VAT is added after that. So we click next here and we're finished. What you're going to see here are the setup cards. These setup cards help you fine-tune your instance of IncoPOS and configure it completely. So for example, we selected that this is a store. When we have this card for location, it will ask us if this is a single store or multiple stores. If it's a single store, we just can select the name of it. By default it's store, but if there are multiple, we can choose how many are there, and we can choose the names for them. For now, I'll select a single store and click setup, and this card disappeared. Now we can choose if we want to add more than one default customer. We can have a few. Usually we don't need that, but in some cases we want to be able to have more than one customer work and order at the same time. For example, in restaurants, we can have more than one customer on one table, and then in this case, we need to set up more than one client for the table, so we can switch the bills between them. Right now, I'll just press cancel here. I can hide the cart if I don't want to see it by clicking X here. Partners. Partners are usually, again, this is the more general term for clients and vendors. We can import them here if we have it in some form of a CSV file, for example. If we had some other software or we had them in some spreadsheet, we can select some of these options to import them in the software and have them inside. Items, we have pretty much the same thing. If we have the items from a CSV file stored somewhere or exported from some other software, we can select one of these options that we support. That will allow us to quickly enter them into the system and continue. Users, these are the users of the system. By default, we have one which is the default user, but if you want, you can add more granularity and track who did what and who has access to different areas. We strongly encourage you to have more than the default user if that system is going to be used in a store, because then you have multiple cashiers, administrators, managers that enter the system, and everybody should have a different set of permissions so that allow them to do different things. If I press add, the first one that I'm going to add is going to be the owner. This is for sure. I'll just enter owner here, and I'll delete the password. It will be like this. I can save it and it will be added here. I can add one more. Then the second one by default is operator. This is the levels of access that they have. These levels have default permissions, and some of the things are generally excluded from the menu when you select them. And when we create a new user with that level, we can adjust these permissions granularly in another place, and you can adjust them also by selecting permissions per level too. So we have full control there. I'll just enter operator here, and again I'm gonna remove the password. I'll just close this. I'm not gonna add items and partners right now. We're almost done. These things can be configured at any time. You can start working with the system right now. It's not going to limit you in any way. They'll continue showing up when you start IncoPOS later too. The idea is that you don't need to stop and configure everything right now, but these are the important things that you probably need to enter, especially when you have that kind of business that you have selected. For example, the company information. This is the data that is going to be displayed on invoices that you issue. This is important mainly when you do that. If you don't print invoices, then that information will not be used in many other places. In some situations, you need it for some physical devices that enter information and display it on the cash receipts, but in many places you don't need it. But still you can get it and fill it up here, and it's a good idea to do it. Devices. The setup card will allow you to configure any hardware that you may have connected to that workstation. It can be a cash receipt printer, kitchen printer that prints receipts to the cooks if you have such in that business. And there are others that are more rarely used, like a card reader that's connected to a serial port, or you can have electronic scales connected to that computer. This can be, for example, Data Logic Magellan with the scale inside, which is an integrated barcode scanner and also a scale inside. You can connect these and configure them. If, for example, if you click this, you'll be presented with this dialog, and it filters only the devices that are cash receipts printers. And you can see there are many makes who have separate videos on how to set up each one of these areas. So I don't want to go too much in depth here, but the idea is this. These are the payment processors that are the bank terminals that gather the money from cards, and we can integrate with them so we can send them the amount that needs to be taken from the client, and then they can respond and tell us if everything went well, and we can finish automatically the sale from IncoPOS. And startup is the startup page that you want to use when you start initially IncoPOS. By default, you see this page. This is the startup page, but if you have something else in mind, usually for retail stores, you can use the touchscreen interface, which is very comfortable if you have such a screen, or you can have some other retail store interface. I'll choose this one. So this is basically the way to set up a blank database as a store. To have some information and to show you all the interesting modules in IncoPOS, I'll create a new sample database which has information in it. I'll just go here. I'll enter store 1 and I'll choose sample database. Here the difference is that we have information in that database that is pre-filled with some items, partners, and so on, and this is useful for quick demo. If you have your own company and you want to set up your data, then it's better to use the other option for blank database that we just did. So let's create the sample database. I'll just choose a name for the workstation. And we have some default users already set up here. This one is the one with the highest level of access, so choose it. So we have more things to see. And you can see now all the things that are relevant for that kind of business. Usually what you need to know is the sales. And for sales, we have a few different modules here. This one is the most generic sale. This is mostly for back office sales. It lets you enter all the details manually. including discounts. This is usually not the module that you want to put on a cashier, because then they can manipulate everything, including the prices, discounts, and everything. Point of sale is something very similar to this one, but it allows you to select some partner, some location, and after that they get frozen, and from this point on you simply scan with the barcode scanner and enter the items that you want to be sold. And here you can see the price, but you cannot edit it. You can just edit the quantity and the item. You can still enter a discount, but this can be limited for the user on how much is the maximum discount they can enter. And of course you can enter a 0, so they cannot enter anything. Okay, and we have one more module that is for cashiers, that is the touch screen. It lets you add items here. Very quickly I'll show you a few, and you can just select some items that can be added here. Okay, I already have one, and when you click them they get added here. Also, of course, this works with the barcode scanner, so if you scan an item it will be added on the left side, and then you can finish the sale. You can choose how the sale is being paid, in cash, bank, or card, and we can finish it. If there's a physical device or some receipt printer, it will automatically print the receipt. If you have a payment processor that intercepts the card payments, then it can ask for card payment from the client, and it will process that payment and record it. So these are the sales modules that are more relevant. Of course, you have more. You have the kiosk, which is self-checkout, but we're going to cover this in some other video. Another thing that's relevant for retail stores is purchase, of course. Purchase is the operation that brings in items into the store. It lets you enter who sold you the items, where exactly, in which location you are entering the items. Of course, a list of all the items with their purchase prices, and we can set directly when I press enter, I can choose the items, or I can choose them by entering some part of the code they have, or some part of the name. Here we select the quantity, how many of these items are purchased, what's the price that we paid for them, what's the price that we're gonna be selling them for. You can set it here directly, so immediately when you purchase something you can see, depending on the purchase price, how much you want to put the sale price to be. And of course, if you press save, you choose if you paid for that purchase. You can track that in order to see which purchases are paid, which are not, so the system can remind you about this. And if you press OK, you can print, of course, a stock receipt. This is a document that, if you want, you can print on a printer and give it to somebody to sign, so you have a paper trail too. If not, you can just skip it. So a few other operations that are relevant for stores are waste, which is pretty much the same looking at as like the purchase, but here you don't choose a partner, you just choose location and what you want to waste. So this is the act of removing some item from the stock because it got broken, spoiled, or something like that. When you choose the items and enter the quantity, you will remove these items from the current availability, and you reduce the availability. You can see in items here a quick look of the availability here in that column, quantity. and you can see when you have something. We just purchased this item and it got a little bit more items in stock. Another thing is return. If this is when a client wants to return an item, we just made a sale. So the first thing that the return operation lets us is to choose the cell that we want to make a return for. If we select it, then the return operation will be pre-filled with all the information from the cell. If not, it will be empty and we'll have to enter it manually. I'll just select it, and these are the items that were sold. So purchase return is similar, but it's the return of items that we purchased. Again, here we can enter who we're returning to and from what location and the items. You can notice that almost all the operations, back office operations, are identical in their way of working, way of how they're structured. So it's very easy to remember. You don't need to think about it much. These are the main operations that are required for stores. Of course, if you have more than one store, you can use transfer, which lets you move items from one location to another. It will subtract the availability from one location and move it to another. Here in the items, generally you see the quantity of all the items in all the location. But here you have a button that if you select it, you can choose, for example, to see the quantity for that location, and then it gets refreshed only for that location. If I choose another one, you see it changes. So this is the way to quickly see what's available where. If you want to show only the available items, you have a quick filter here, and it will limit the items to only those who are in stock. So the structure basically is this. On the left here on the operations, you have all the actions that you can do, and after that you have edit, and here are all the lists that you can edit. For example, partners, items, users that we already mentioned, locations, and of course you can edit past documents here too. For example, I can edit a sale, and this is the sale that we already made. And I can change it if I made a mistake here. Also, we can go to edit, reprint documents, sale. So if that documents that are that sale that I already made, I want to print the document, the A4 document for it, I can select it, and then we'll have that print preview. And from here I can print it on a desktop printer, or I can export it as a PDF, for example. Okay, all the document templates are here and they can be edited, but this is a topic of another video. And the reports are actually one of the most important things. We generally use that software not to just enter sales and purchases. We need to get information from that system based on that data that we entered. So in reports, you can see you have various reports, more than 40 reports that have different filters. You can show the sales, for example, here. You can see all the sales that are made. Of course, this is a demo database and has already sales in it. You can choose here the filter, and you can change the filter. For example, I can choose only for today, and it will change and show us only what happened today. I can choose many other things too on how to filter. Of course, we'll make another video about that too, but this is the general idea. You have all the fields that you can fill with different values or not, and here you have checkboxes which allows you to turn off certain columns if you don't care about them. For example, users group, I can just turn it off, or location group, I don't care about it too. And when I press, it gets refreshed and these columns are removed. This one can remove the clutter, reduce the unnecessary information on your screen, and of course this report you can print it or you can export it. So these are the most important things that you need to know for your retail store and for your business. You can integrate all kind of hardware that you may have connected to your workstation, and we'll talk about that later. But this is the most basic things that are need to be set up in order for you to start. As you can see, it takes a matter of minutes in order to set up your business. So if you found that video helpful, please press a like, subscribe, press the bell, and we'll see you in the next videos, which will be coming soon. See you.